Okay, let's talk about rate and ratio again. So rate and ratio. Jason walked for 3 hours. So I've got hours. At a speed of 3.5 kilometers. But it was 3.5 kilometers per hour. How many hours? 3.5. This is what we've been doing, but it's in one. So I've got 3 apples per bananas. If I got 1 banana. Kilometers per hour. Cats per house. Okay, it's already in ratio form, but we kind of need to pull this little thing that is like a fraction sign. It's 3 divided by 4. Kilometers divided by hours. Per hours. Per hours. So I've got kilometers. I've got 2 units. I've got kilometers. And I've got hours. So if I've got kilometers and hours, how many kilometers do I have? 3.5. How many hours do I have? 1. Often in this kilometers per hour ratio, the hours is 1. And I need to make that into a new ratio. I need to take that and I need to say, well, I did 3.5 in 1 hour. How many kilometers did I do in 3 hours? It's still a ratio and a rate. But I say 1 times how much is 3? That was an easy one. Times 3. 3.5 times 3 is 10.5. Okay. You can check me, but it's 10.5. So I did 10.5 kilometers in 3 hours. Let's do a few more of these. Sandra walks at, she walks very slowly, 2 kilometers per hour. Now this is an interesting thing. How long, that means in hours, does it take her to walk home from school or somewhere? If home is, let's just say, if home is 6 kilometers away. Okay, she's doing a little bit of exercise. Nice. So I've got 2 kilometers per hour. This is a ratio of 2 to 1. This is kilometers. This is hours. A ratio of 2 to 1. If I put this into a ratio of 6 to something, what did I do to 2 to get to 6? I times it by 3. And what I do to the one side of the ratio, I do to the other. So it took her 3 hours to walk home. So please someone get her an Uber. Okay, so it took 3 hours to walk home. So they're asking you in kilometers per hour, you've got kilometers to hours. Most of the time, this answer is going to be 1. If I go at 40 kilometers per hour, what's the rate I go at? I go at 40 to 1. Kilometers to hours. Okay, I've got 40 to, for every 40 kilometers, it takes me 1 hour. They're 2 different units, but it's cats per house. Cats per house. Sweets per child. Hopefully sweets per child, those 2 aren't the same units. Children mustn't look like sweets. Okay, so per means ratio. So we had, what, 10.5? Now they're either going to ask you how long it took, and then they're asking you this number, or they're asking you how far it was, and they tell you how many hours and how far. You've got to work out one, or you're given this one and you work out the other one. Okay, so let's do another one. Iqbal walks 5 kilometers. He averages. Now you've got to turn this into a ratio. Turn into a ratio. Okay, he averages 2,5. I've got kilometers, I've got hours. 2,5 per every 1 hour. How much does he walk? He walks 5 kilometers. Come on. He walks 5 kilometers. How long does it take him to walk that 5 kilometers? Well, what did I do to 2.5? And you've got the answer already. So how long did it take him? It took him 2 hours. So how did I get from 2.5 to 5? I times by 2. What I do to this side of the ratio, I've got to do to this side of the ratio, just like a fraction. And I say 1 times 2 is 2. Therefore, he walked 2 hours. So you've got to break this up, this kilometers per hour, up into a ratio. Okay, the distance between Kimberley and Durban is 460 kilometers. Okay, so I've got kilometers and I've got hours. A train covers a distance of 345 minutes. The real question is, how many hours is 345 minutes? Well, 345 divided by 60 is, you can do that on your calculator quickly. Okay, so I've got, my calculator says, and you're going to do these distance time ones, especially the more interesting numbered ones on your calculator. My calculator says it's 5,75 hours. So distance between is 460. Okay, find the speed of the train if it gets there. And I think they should have put something extra here by saying if it gets there in 345 minutes. Okay, find the different distance of the train. Well, how many hours have I got? Remember, convert your units. If you're working out area and you've got 5 centimeters here, but you've got 40 millimeters here, we need to convert them into the same, because area is length times breadth is the area, in meaning that I count the number of squares that's in here, and I can't be working with 40. I can't say 40 times 5. Is that 200 centimeters? It is 200 millimeters. They've got to be the same unit. So I've got to change this into 4 centimeters because there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. So divide by 10. So then I say 4 times 5 is 20. And it's centimeters squared. Okay, and that's the area of this thing. In the same way, I need to talk not in terms of minutes, kilometers per minute, because that's a bullet train, but kilometers per hour. So I've got 460 to 5,75 hours. Now, what do I know about kilometers per hour? It's in the words kilometers per hour, and we don't say it, but it's kilometers per 1 hour, and kilometers in terms of plural or in terms of lots. So how many lots of kilometers, many kilometers, do I do per 1 hour? And so I've got to take this ratio down to something in 1 hour. How many kilometers do I travel in 1 hour? And that's the real question they're asking with a question like this. It's an interesting question, but just write out your ratios, kilometers per hour, write out what the kilometers are, write out what the hours are. You're going to turn that hour into 1. Now, how do I get from 5,75 to 1? Well, I divide by 5,75 to get to 1. So I'm making, this is a smaller number than this, so I'm going to divide it. So, and if I divide 5,75 by 5,75, I've got to divide this side. you're starting to get used to dividing both sides by the same number. So 460 divided by 5,75 gives me 80 kilometers. So I'm going at 80 to 1, or at 80 kilometers. Now we don't say per hour like this. And we used to say 80 kilometers per hour as a fraction, but now we just say 80 kilometers per, that's like the divide sign in your fraction, per hour. In other words, per 1 hour. Kilometers, lots of kilometers per 1 hour. Okay, good job. Okay, the distance between Bloemfontein and Durban is 611 kilometers. So I've got distance of 611 kilometers. Okay. Bus traveling between the two cities travels an average speed of 94 kilometers per hour. That is a ratio. It's already a ratio. And what is a ratio of? If I say kilometers to hours, it's a ratio of 94 to 1. In other words, I do 94 per 1 hour. How many do I do per 2 hours? Well, I do 188 in 2 hours. And so on. And I times them and I times them. But maybe I'm doing less work. But let's see. Now, how long does the trip take? Well, if I do 94 kilometers to 1 hour, what have I got here? I've got distance, which is 611 kilometers per. The real question is, what did I divide by or times by? Can you see this is probably times by something, because this is a bigger number. This is a larger number. This 611 is larger. So I can say 611 divided by 94 to see how much I timesed the other way, because it's the reverse operation. So 611 on your calculator divided by 94 equals 6,5. So if I say again, 694 times 6,5, I'm going to get 611. And what I do to the one side, I do to the other side of my ratio. 1 times 6,5 is going to be 6,5. So how many hours is it going to take? And you need to stack it up like this in your book as you're doing it. You say kilometers per hour. You put the kilometers underneath. This is brilliant when you get a kilometers per hour, because you know the ratio already. 94 to 1. Then I get given one of the numbers and I've got to find the other one. You're going to stack it up like this, and you're going to write it exactly like this in your book, in your test, in your exam. Okay. So it takes me, and then write what your answer is. How long does the trip take? Not just 6,5. I'm going to say 6,5 hours. Okay, good job. Okay, a car travels at 360 kilometers. So I've got kilometers per hours. 360 in 3 hours. So my ratio is 360 to 3. But can I simplify this ratio? It might make it easier for me. Let's see what the question asks. How many hours are needed for the car to travel 600 kilometers? It would be better if we simplified this. So just like if I've got, let's say 4 over 8, I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 4. And I'm going to get a half. In the same way, I'm going to divide by, you've got it, 3. So divide by 3 both sides. Okay, divide by 3 both sides. And I've got a 1 here. 36 divided by 3 is 12, 120. So 120 kilometers per hour. That's the rate at which I'm traveling at. That's the rate. That's the kilometers per hour, which is pretty awesome. So how many hours are needed for the car to travel at 600 kilometers an hour? Well, kilometers, I've got 600, and I've got a mysterious number. How do I find that mysterious number? Well, 12 times what is 60? Can you see I said this? 12 times what is 60? And the answer is 5. So 120 times what is 600? It's going to be times 5. Now, what I do to the one side of the ratio, I do to the other. 1 times 5 is 5. I haven't got my answer yet. Yes, I got my answer, but I need to answer it in terms of the question. How many hours are needed? 5 hours. It's going to take 5 hours to travel 600 kilometers. And that makes sense. From here to Durban is probably about 5 hours. So well done. Do all the questions. You need quite a few questions to get good at this. Remember, at least 20. The rule is at least 20 questions to kind of get that, to kind of get it in and in the pocket, in your pocket, in your pocket.